welcome to the Lawyer Mastermind Podcast. I'm Casey Mraz, and today I'm joined by Rob, Leann, and Steve. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
Yep, happy to be here.
Awesome. Are you really happy?
I am.
Okay.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be talking about an interesting topic that I think a lot of law firm owners and marketing managers can relate to, and that's the 6-month Scaries in SEO that we're calling it here. Rob, you kind of coined the term, or I had heard about it from you. Anyway, but the problem that we're going to dive into today is there like a problem here? Are you not happy with the results, or are we not aggressive enough, or whatever? So we're going to kind of go into this and dive a little bit deeper. But Steve, I want you to kind of start off here. Let's talk about a typical SEO timeline and why 6 months may not be enough in competitive markets, even for some established firms.
So I think there's a few reasons why 6 months is almost never enough time, especially in a big market. If you're in a Houston or a Dallas-Fort Worth metro, or you're in Los Angeles, somewhere like this, you've got tons of competition. You've got everybody doing the same thing, pushing for the same goals, where it really makes your marketing efforts kind of worth it and compels you to push forward. 6 months just really isn't enough time, because a lot of things in the digital world, they work slowly. So if you're entering and you're really starting to focus on this now, you have to consider the fact that there are at least dozens of other firms who do the same thing that you do, who have probably been doing it for 3, 4, 5, 6 times longer. So when you start to get that little 6-month scary, maybe what you do is you talk to your team, you talk to your agency, whoever you're working with, and you go back to that communication and you say, hey, maybe I thought we'd be a little bit further along at this point. What can we do to speed things up? What can we do to think outside the box and start, getting us some of those leads that we need, even if this journey is going to take a little bit longer? And I think that goes back to what you talk about a lot, Casey, with strategy and having a well-rounded strategy, having different ideas, thinking outside the box. Mm-hmm. I think that stuff's important. So I think that, to get a little less winded here, 6 months isn't enough time for the work that you're doing under the hood to pay dividends.
And then now I'm just going to play devil's advocate because, I'm just trying to be rude. But who wants to answer this? Like what there's got to be ways you can speed this up. And what does that look like? Anyone want to chime in on that? Of course, have an opinion. But
more money.
More money helps, more resources.
Of course,
I always think SEO is a time game, right? Your competitors have been there longer, right? Mm-hmm. So their SEO will naturally be better because they've existed for a longer time. So that's allowed them to build more links and all this stuff. So what SEO is, it's a strategic allocation of resources to try to outwork that time that your competitor has already been there.
I like that.
When you do the right things, you can speed up the process to sort of catch up to them SEO-wise and then surpass them, right? Mm-hmm. But we need to outwork what's already been done. And when you have a lot of resources, you could do a lot more work to catch up to that time frame.
Faster, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really important. And tying that in, you typically can't do that within 6 months.
Yeah. Now, theoretically, what if you could just do everything, create all this content, do all the website updates, build the website, and do all the links on day one, just like flip a switch.
I love this. This is something I'm very passionate about, all right? You can't just follow a script and expect to get there. This is such a reactionary job that we have where we need to put it out there. And then most importantly, this is what I think makes a really good marketer and SEOer is like, see what Google gives us, see how Google reacts. And then you don't want to fight Google. You want to promote what Google thinks is going to happen. So like if, we do a page where it's a car accident and we do a page where it's a slip and fall and we do a page that's a pedestrian accident. And for some reason, like Google's like, wow, this person really knows what they're doing with pedestrian accidents. Rank number 3, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to kind of like lean towards and like work with pedestrian accidents to kind of like push things along and go there. So I think being reactionary and not telling Google what to do, but listening to what Google says is good and like promoting that, I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something important there. And I'm going to throw this one right to you, Leann, and maybe we should all kind of chime in. But what's the strategy here? Obviously, we hear what you're saying, Rob. Should we focus on like 100 areas at once or one? What would you do, Leann?
Yeah, it obviously comes back to strategy.
Have a good strategy.
Yeah, so what the goal is, building a strategy amongst that. SEO in my world, I'm sitting at the table with 3 SEOs versus one like
And we're
PPC.
teaming up on you,
Yeah.
to be mean.
But I think there's a lot of avenues what you can do in those 6 months, right? So you can go in the community and do more advertising there. While SEO is building behind the scenes, there's innovative ideas that you can pull into play. There's also advertising that you can run. So we always say, or I like to say that advertising is the short game, SEO is the long game. So what's going to stay on and stick the longest and build with your business, that's SEO. That's what you're investing in. PPC, LSAs, it's the short game. It gets attention quick. You can do that in the 6 months, but SEO should be building in the background along the way.
Sure. Yeah, and I was really talking about like, from an SEO perspective, like what if your strategy is to target 10 different practice areas, do you do all 10 at once or do you do one? What's your take?
Yeah, I would say.
That's what I wanted to ask everybody.
Yeah, I would say focused strategy, not focusing on all 10. Kind of goes a little against like what you're doing.
Totally, yeah.
And I think even with the PPC world, asking the client, like, what kind of cases do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want all of them?
And are you changing your mind often? Like,
Yeah, like, do you want all of them? Okay, maybe we do shoot some content out for all of them and, like, see what sticks. Sure. I think, again, strategy, I think that is an approach. But what does the client want? What kind of cases do they care about med-mal? Half of them probably not. Some do, and they love the referral fees, right? So I think it all goes back to what kind of cases you want and then really focusing there. I like to focus on specific areas and types of law first, maybe 2 or 3, not 10.
So Leann's answer is 2 or 3.
Yeah, there's my long-winded answer for you.
Yeah. What's yours, Steve?
Well, I think what Rob and Leann are saying actually works together, I think.
Okay.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Rob, you were kind of like looking for that one that hits and then pursuing that
Like
one.
that weak point.
Yeah, I think niching down, as they say, is great, especially if you have something that is paying the bills and works and you can get leads from it. You can hyper-focus on that thing and still, kind of what you were saying, Leann, let other things work in the background, right? So you can put, however you want to look at it, allocating 60% of my SEO resources to this. The other 40% I'm going to split a little bit among these other ones and keep working them up and keep trying to develop lead stream for these. But I'm really focused on this one that is giving me good leads.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me tie this all together too.
Bring it in.
Yeah. So 6 months Scaries, right? It's also about how much progress we want to be able to show to a client, right? Progress brings comfort, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, we're moving forward. I've definitely taken a specific practice area and just doubled down on it, right? And it's taken a year of content with very little progress to show because like Google's just not picking it up. But then all of a sudden it pops and like things start getting crazy and like ranking and doing well, right? Like your topical authority starts to increase in Google's mind. And that's fantastic. So like my initial approach, I'm all about avoiding those 6 month Scaries because they're scary. And no client wants to like see zero progress for like an entire year.
Yeah.
So that's why my initial approach was like, okay, like let me see what hits and then I can like build a strategy along that line. But if we have a large company who is committed to staying the course, I will say, tell me what the practice area is and we will achieve it for you. You just need to be aware, this may take a little bit
More
before
time.
you see the progress. So,
I think that's all about strategy too. Because like if they're the motorcycle guy, like they want the
They have a
motorcycle
brand.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want the motorcycle cases, and that approach it's going to take a while. Like, you have focused strategy on the one thing, but
Well, there's so many nuances and complexities. Like if you're a well-established firm, you could do a lot of on-page and optimize your content, and maybe we'll see results tomorrow.
Yeah.
true.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so great when it happens.
That's a win. Yes.
Yeah. And it does happen. You know, like Google's like, oh, this is the website. This is motorcycle guy, right? They know motorcycles. Rank.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing.
And just dominating
From
the
the
data.
entity perspective, they're like everything about this. So, about 10 years ago, Matt and I, we did these like hyper-focused websites. And we would say, hey, look, let's have a exact match domain name. So motorcycleaccidentlawyer.com. And the business name is something like Motorcycle Accident Lawyer. And the content. And we built the citations and the links and everything around that. And when Google looked at all those signals, it was very clear. There's no ambiguity. And so we always saw those rank quickly.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried that in 2025, to be clear. But we've gone the other approach, too. Like my approach is actually, it is the marry them both. Like I do kind of go wide and deep on a strategy. And then I also, I guess I go wide on a strategy. Yeah. And then I'll go deep into like something very specific that I think is going to show those results. But you mentioned, Rob, that people don't want to wait 6 months or a year or however long to see results. What can you track, though, to know that you're on the right track internally?
Yeah.
Like if you didn't, let's say that you didn't even want to trust your agency, because I think a lot of people have been burned. What's a tool that law firm owners or marketing managers can do to track to say, hey, look, you know what? We're heading the right direction.
Yeah. Well, to be clear, I don't want to wait more than 6 months either.
No, I know. Yeah.
But there's a lot of good tools out there. What is it? You have Ahrefs, you have SEMrush, a lot of tools that you can have on the side to fact check what your agency is telling you. But those are third-party tools.
And what do you mean by that? Like the data is not accurate?
Got a good little, Well, I'll let you
get
know
there.
in a second.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of it. There's a lot of like first-party tools that are straight from the source, right? Google. And what I say is like Google Search Console and Google Analytics and all these source tools. That's like, here's my analogy. Are you ready? It's like going to the baseball game yourself, right? Like it's going to be very accurate because like you see the information and you know it's there. Now these third-party tools, which are accurate, but like their accuracy is more about like asking your friend, how was the baseball game? So you're kind of like getting it third party.
It depends how much beer there was.
Yeah. There's a lot of factors that can skew those numbers. But there's still good tools to use. I would say those tools give you a good like broad view of like what's going on. But to show the progress, right, because that's what we all want to see, is like increased traffic, increased calls. Like, I mean, I wish I was coming up with something that was a little bit more exciting than this. But it's increased traffic, increased calls. But then you can use these third-party ones and see like, oh, what are your top pages? And like you can look at those top pages and make sure that those top pages that are performing are aligning with the practice areas that you want or something like that. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh yeah, these are the top pages. I see what they're doing here. I see them increasing. I see them improving. So yeah, I wish there was something that could just pull it all together. And maybe you all have something, but for me, and I have the benefit of like always looking at these tools.
Yeah.
So
you know what they say.
Yeah, I would say the Google source ones aren't as user-friendly as the third-party source ones. So
I think a lot of people are familiar with Google Analytics.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people know about Google Search Console, but I don't think they know what it does.
Yeah.
What does Google Search Console like actually bring to the table?
Yeah. I mean, Google Search Console is kind of like an X-ray machine into your performance. You can see the links that are going to your website. You can see the queries that people are searching to get to your website. You could see the pages that people are going to and that are performing well. You can see a quick overview of like impressions. Impression growth is like when someone just scrolls past your name and you're starting to get out there a little bit more. You can see clicks. So it's kind of like an X-ray machine that shows you links, queries, top pages, any issues that are going on with your website, and then just clicks and impressions. So I'm a big fan of Google Search Console, and it's a really quick tool to learn.
And if you're working with an agency, they can show you this data, and they should be able to show you this data, and they should be familiar with this data.
But you should own it. Always own it.
Yes, that is a good point. You want to make sure that you
Ask for the
have that ownership.
Yeah.
And it's a good question to ask your agency, though, too, right? Like, hey, what's my Search Console data look like? Am I on that? Am I the primary user on that? It's definitely a good question to have. So you don't even necessarily need to know how to go find the information.
Yeah.
You need to know how to ask to see the information.
Yeah, and Google Search Console has a great comparison tool. And this is like you comparing your performance 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's my main thing I do is 3 months comparison. And I just want to see if we're improving.
It takes time for Google to process things, and especially in bulk.
Index.
Indexing pages. Yeah, there's a lot of complications and nuances here, of course. So if I wanted to just track growth, I wanted to determine today, I'm working with an aggressive SEO agency or an aggressive team that's moving and making all this happen, or I'm working with teams that are more passive. How can you tell one from the other? Does anybody have any ways that you could look for that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can, and I think this is what causes the 6-month scaries in the first place, is that SEO is kind of ambiguous. You don't really fully always know, and maybe it feels like to you, hey, sending me 3 articles a month and I'm approving them and posting up, because you don't really see what's the behind-the-scenes stuff. And so I think that it goes into that communication realm where you're getting regular, consistent updates. Are you hearing from your team on a pretty regular basis? Are they asking you questions? Are they giving you highlights when, hey, here's a term that we've been trying for, and now you're on showing up at all, and now you're on page 3. You have to understand that's a big result. If you're, started 4 or 5, 6 months ago, and you had no search presence, and now you're starting to see a search presence, you're not going to be seeing leads off page 3, page 4, but that's still a big jump and a big gain, and something to notice and say, okay, I think maybe I am on the right track. I'm starting to get some presence. I'm starting to show up.
Yeah. And, I think I'm going to burn some bridges by saying this, but I think SEO, the model in general, for a lot of agencies, if you're working with an agency or somebody that was in an agency previously, might be broken, where it's like, hey, we'll produce like 3 articles, and that to me would not be really aggressive. But for me, maybe a better solution would be, and hopefully I'm not putting myself in hot water, but let's do a lot up front. Let's do a lot of this legwork up front, a lot of the content, and then we can see how Google treats it. And then we can go back and like tweak it if we need to. And then it depends on your strategy. Like if you are going to do something aggressive, like accident blogging, like that might be daily. Like obviously you'll see that momentum, and that should be tying into those metrics that you care about, which is signed cases, revenue, money. But you should be able to backtrack that a couple steps too and see those growth metrics, in my opinion.
Totally.
I would agree.
Do you need to pause here? I did. If you're listening to this, there's one extension tool that I just thought about that you should download right now. All-in-one SEO extension tool.
Okay.
All right. That is a very important tool that I use all the time to see like how my agency is doing and how they're formatting the work. What it shows you is the title that they are putting on the page, making sure that they're actually doing a meta description. But the title tags, these are like the most basic things that identify whether they're a decent SEO agency or not.
We're just checking boxes.
Yeah. You should only have one H1 title tag. And then, you can have H2s and H3s and H4s. But you need to make sure that those titles have certain keywords in them that you're telling the agency that's important. So all-in-one SEO, it's an extension. Just put it in there, and it's so easy to just like click the button and see, oh, we just put 3 pieces of content a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can look at those pieces of content and see the back end of them of like, okay, these are the basic things. They formatted this right. And I clearly see the keyword, which is the phrase that people would search on Google. I clearly see them trying to attract that with Google. So I just want to throw that in there. Sorry to derail, but I was like, oh, man, that's one of the biggest tools that I use.
That's your nugget. No, that's good. That's useful, and people can just do that and check.
Yeah.
So awesome. And that's the thing, too, when it comes to any SEO, aggressive or slow. Like there's 1,000 things that need to be done. There's less of that number that are actually important. I can think of 100 things that we do to check the boxes because they're table stakes. And in some cases, I'm like, do we need to do that? But really, the other thing is like talking with your agency or your in-house people, like, is what we're doing going to make the biggest impact? Are we prioritizing the right things? Because with this industry, it is easy to just kind of get into the check the box, like kind of mindset, because there's so
Value.
much. But like something any firm could do today is like go out and look at their client list. And this is one thing that I tell like potential new clients to do is like, hey, your Google reviews suck or there's not enough. Let's take your whole client list and, let's export that and outreach to each one of them and see if they're willing to leave feedback, right? And I could go on for hours talking about reviews. But, all these things need to be a part of the process, but that might have a bigger impact than going and making sure that you have 6 images on a page or I don't know. I'm just saying something arbitrary and basic there. There was
I
no
agree.
follow-up question. I agree. Okay. Did you have more?
Well, I was just going to say, value, right? So not just checking off the boxes. I think the difference between agencies or, individuals that are doing SEO that are separate is they're not just checking a box and selling you on one thing. It's about, does their strategy shift or is what they're bringing valuable to what you want as far as the signed case? So you say you want X cases in this type of manner and the problem is this, have they determined that? Have they determined the goal of what you want to accomplish? Or are they just handing you back a strategy that's just checkboxes? Or does it bring value?
Look at this
to
300-point
your-
checklist.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd. I
it's
like stuff like that. But
you
I
know.
don't know why I said it in the nerd voice.
So I think value, not checkboxes. So I agree. I think all aspects of those things.
So does everybody have one red flag that you could give that would be like, hey, I'm at the 6-month Scaries and, oh, shit, this is actually not working and it's not going to work out for me? Is there anything like red flag that would be blaring and obvious? For one is if they don't publish any content in that 6 months or something. Or maybe you didn't approve that content, which means you need to be out of that workflow, like just from a realistic standpoint. Like if you can't get content approved, don't be the problem.
It's a very good point.
Don't be the problem with the process.
The data, what does it say, right? That is the red flag, in my opinion. It's like, did they start on time and start tracking things? What does the data say?
Yeah.
If that says nothing or it's going down or not showing any sort of uptick, at least my opinion, you guys can disagree, but
Or
I
they
think there
launch your
should be
website.
some sort of trickle, of work being done and,
Yeah, there should be positive movement.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you should see something going on.
If it's a month into your relationship, they launch your website, but it's no index.
Oof.
Red flag.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think,
Can you find your website?
By typing.
yeah. I think we can all relate to work. That's something I'm passionate about, especially if it's your company, like you grow this mindset, like no one is going to work as hard as me for my company, right? So if you don't see any progress, I would ask your agency, okay, can you provide me the monthly agendas of your strategy and like the work that you completed? And if they can't give you like an organized list of everything that you've done, and if they can't explain it to you, that's a red flag. Because like, who's doing the work and like where are you getting the strategy from? And like, nothing's working. So like, tell me the effort that you've been putting into this, because like we can all relate to effort and work. And that's something that's important to me is like, I want to see the agency working for me, right? If I'm paying them.
Yeah.
So they better be able to produce, in my mind, like the monthly agenda or the strategy or the content strategy that they've been working on to get you and move the needle. Because like I said, SEO is just a time game. We're trying to outwork the people that have been here for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my red flag. If they can't produce the work that they've done, or like they can't like show it in an organized way,
Yeah.
and they just kind of like push you a hodgepodge thing of like, oh yeah, we got it.
What if they send you a list of 1,000 links they created that month?
This is very important. All right. It's very easy to like buy links, and there's junky links out there and there's good links out there, and to use them in a strategic way, like you can use junky links, you can use in a
You
strategic
can go
way.
to Fiverr.
Yeah, yeah. So if they're like, oh, you gave us $3,000 and we just made you 1,000 links, and like that's all we've done,
Red flag.
red flag. Like that, those 1,000 links could have cost them $100, and they're just pocketing and just hanging out and being like,
Yeah.
And these numbers are arbitrary.
No,
of
of
course. Yeah, yeah.
It got me thinking though right now too, just like, a lot of it is investment side of things as well. Like realistically, like we were talking about at the beginning, you're entering into a market and there's already 300 competitors there, and you're just investing the minimum amount. Like you can't really expect to see any of those timelines pushed. But on the other side, if you have a lot bigger budget to invest, you can also see some green flags right up. You can be investing in PR, like we do that for. I think a lot of agencies or in-house people see a lot of benefit from that because you're building a brand that people are seeing on, I hate to use Forbes as an example because they were just recently penalized, but, other websites that are known and authoritative, and you will get cases from that as well. You'll get that brand exposure, you'll get cases, and you'll get the links and the SEO benefits that the nerdy people like me care about.
No one's as passionate about links as Steve over here.
Steve the linker.
He loves his links.
The link builder.
Links are imperative. You still need them in 2025.
Yeah. That's how Google was built as a search engine. And obviously, we need to get Matt on here in a podcast so we can debate.
We can duke it out over links.
The importance of links.
You calling him out right now?
But let's turn it real quickly just to kind of, I was. Hopefully he doesn't see this. I'll send it to him. But, let's talk about kind of getting to the end here. How can you push through this 6-month Scaries if people are getting cold feet? Like, again, we know it's an investment. How do you push through this?
I was just going to kind of reiterate what we've already pretty much talked about is asking who's doing your SEO. Is what they're putting out and like valuable to what you want as the end goal.
Communication, transparency.
The theme. But value, right? Not putting 1,000 links over the last 6 months, right? But, is what they're producing valuable?
Is what they're doing exceptional? Or is it just like sending you a checklist of, we optimize 42 meta descriptions?
And you're just like, what is a meta description?
But also understand that in relative of your budget. Like if you're investing the minimum amount and they only have a few hours to work on you, like if that's all you can afford, then, still.
Should be value in what they're doing.
You're right. I was trying to think about how to say that. So thank you for making that sound better than I could come up with.
To me, I think the best way to push through a 6-month Scary is to not get them in the first place. And you do that by being engaged, paying attention.
That's a good point.
So if whoever you hire, in-house, agency, be engaged. And I don't mean you're breathing down their neck and you're, every day, what's going on. But being involved in the process, asking questions, trying to learn and understand what is making this work, and just kind of being there all along the process. And then I think you never get to that point of having those 6-month Scaries because you know what's going on. You're aware of what they're working on. You know what the strategy is going. You're not just kind of waiting for an email. And as an attorney, you get busy. And I know this when I've emailed attorneys for months and you don't hear anything from them. And then they'll come back and they have a list of concerns. And, well, if we don't know the concerns or if your team doesn't know the concerns, they can't act on them.
Yeah, and you touched on something there that isn't commonly talked about. Like there needs to be a process in place, just like your business needs to be able to run. Like at least as you build a bigger business, like without you doing everything, right? Having your hand in everything. So there needs to be like a push process or whatever for this stuff to keep happening. Don't be the roadblock, like in your own success.
Yeah.
And then have a set meeting too and showing up like.
Yeah, you're asking too much.
I mean, a
communication,
lot of times
transparency, right?
Yeah.
Like
it only breaks down to a couple hours a month. If you've hired a team, if you have people doing this for you, it really only breaks down to a couple hours a month.
Yeah. So how do I avoid 6-month Scaries?
Yeah.
I don't. 6 months Scaries is scary. All right. Like you're trusting someone and you're paying them. Money is your weapon, right? As a business owner, money is your weapon. So you're paying someone and you're trusting them to do a good job, right? So what does it come down to and how do you avoid that? Well, it's like any other relationship. How do you build trust with someone? So I think you avoid the 6-month Scaries by trusting and building a relationship with your agency and knowing that they're doing good work. And you do that by identifying any of the red flags that we talked about today, really having someone that you're working with that's passionate, right? I want passionate people working for me.
Yeah.
I don't want someone that just shows up and like, yeah, I'm just here to collect the paycheck.
Where's the paycheck? Yeah.
Yeah. I want someone that like loves marketing, breathes marketing, and like I want to feel that and like the confidence that they have. And if they show me what they're doing in an organized manner, that gives me more trust and be like, all right, you know what, I'm bought in. Like,
Yeah.
let's blow this out of the water and keep going.
That's awesome. And I just had like a really important thing to say there. Oh, it's goal setting. Actually, that's what you reminded me of. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
because
little thing.
yeah, it's that little thing. No, but like in transparency, going back to Leann, I'm giving you a lot of credit now, Leann. Look at this. But no, that transparency of communication of, look, I am signing cases, and actually being open of, this is the leads that we got. These were good. These were bad. Having that back and forth actually probably alleviates a lot of that. But at least if you're not sharing that information with the people doing the work, you're kind of doomed to failure. And so, like, don't you think? Like, how are you ever going to align like your SMART goals and actually achieve those results unless you have like a working relationship like that?
Totally. I mean, trust goes both ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to get their trust, and you should be able to trust them and share the wins and share the successes. Like, we're not sitting here like, oh, like, we need more money. We need more money.
Yeah.
Like, we want to achieve your goal. And, to do that, like, having a nice little trust tree and a relationship and like sharing wins and like telling us what's good, what's bad, that's so important.
Well, and
Yeah.
it doesn't take a lot of time. Obviously, attorneys are busy, right?
Yeah.
And they sometimes, like, giving that information or sitting down to talk through different cases, it doesn't take that. There are tools in place too that like can help alleviate those things, or just like sending a checklist at the end of the month and say, these are good cases. Awesome.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of time. And I think a lot of people get caught up in, well, if we do that and engage with the SEO, it's gonna I don't have the time for it. I don't have the time to mark that as a good lead or a bad lead. Someone else will do it. Okay, well, that doesn't help kind of solve the problem either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's ways, if they're a good SEO, there's a quick way of not taking up a lot of time to solve the problem still.
Got it. Yeah. No, I agree. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on this wonderful journey of nerd speak and SEO speak. Hopefully it wasn't too boring.
Great
for
time.
Our audience.
Should hashtag
Clearly
nerd speak.
we're passionate about this stuff. And, we care. We live and breathe it. So
That's true.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Casey.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good.
Cheers.